Where do you think that the UK selection process for our special forces sort of ranks in the world in terms of the toughest processes out there?
Yes, it's at the top. It's number one. I think you're right there, Lewis. Everyone tends to know that most of the special forces around the world is based on the UK special forces, which is the SAS. So I can honestly say that we have the best armed forces in the world, and I've worked with a lot of foreign forces, and there's a lot of good ones out there. But I would say we're at the top of the tree, and obviously I'm going to say that simply because I've served in the British Armed Forces, and that's not slagging any of the other armed forces around the world, because there's some very good ones. But you've asked me a direct question. And I would say without a doubt is that we have the best special forces in the world. Our selection process is probably the hardest in the world. It's over 90% failure rate. Just about most special forces organizations around the world are based on our system. Okay. And a lot of the time, our regiment is asked to train foreign forces around the world. So answering your question is yes, and you've got to bear in mind why that is. I mean, we were born in North Africa, in the Second World War. So we've had a long time to develop as special forces. I mentioned about, we had a Malayan conflict in the 50s. And the regiment has really started from the Second World War up to date. So we've had a long history. We've got better and better as time has gone on. And I think, when other forces around the world look at us, they say, yes, we'd like to have a system like what the British SAS have got. We'd like to be trained by them. And I think that we have a format of success which really works. And I think that also proves the other special forces around the world, because it seems to work for them as well. So when they come to us, or they base it on our training, and when they come to us and ask us to train, I think they have a success format as well. As I said earlier on, if we're trying to analyze this, I think if there's anything which is pivotal, if you like, it's getting the right type of guy. And there has to be a process. And that process is the selection process. And we have to have guys that want to come. So that's why it's a volunteer basis. So when I come from Para-Reg, I volunteered. No one forced me. No one said you've got to go up there and you've got to do this. And by the way, when I first failed the first one, I volunteered for the second one. Okay, so they want guys that are volunteers. They want guys who want to be there. And then you go, right, if that's a selection process in itself, I know in the armed forces, even in our armed forces, they make guys go on certain courses. They've got to do them. Some of it's for rank, some of it's to gain skill in certain areas. But for the SAS, they want a volunteer. So they want a guy there. And then when he's there, they need a certain selection process. And I've said earlier on, the reason to do that is because the job we do is very hard, very stressful, and it's not for everyone. So they have a selection process which selects that individual. And I think as long as they keep to this format, and I'm kind of repeating myself here what I said earlier on, but it's often said that as long as this selection process stays within the regiment, you will always get the same type of guy. As soon as they get rid of that format, I think that would be the downfall of the regiment.